Good morning. Happy Monday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. As usual, a busy Monday coming up. First, a housekeeping item. For those of you on iFast University, we have a call today at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're not on iFast U, please go to ifastuniversity.com, get yourself signed up, and join us at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that conference call. Okay, digging into today's Q&A. This is with, well, it was Ian, and then he had a special guest. My adopted son, Zach, was on the call. Of course, he was incognito. He had on his Clark Kent disguise, glasses and a hat, so nobody could recognize him. But that's who that was. The discussion revolved around split squats, but the thing that I want you to take away from this call is the influence of structure. So we got into this a little bit as far as from a structural standpoint, what are the compensatory strategies that we're typically going to see under the circumstances of the execution of a split squat. It also lends itself to the fact that not every exercise is for everyone at every time. We can't generalize these rules that everybody should be able to do all of these different things, because structure matters, and it's going to lend itself to being good at certain things and not so good at other things. And so again, a very, very important aspect of this call. So thank you, Zach. Thank you, Ian, for taking care of my boy. And everybody have an outstanding Monday. And I'll see you, if you're on iFast, I'll see you today at 1 p.m. And if not, then I'll see you tomorrow. Let's go. Ian, I'm sorry, there's only one person allowed on a call. You guys are going to have to split up and get on different screens.
All right, then. Fair enough.
Hey, Ian, who's the dork in the hat?
I don't know. He says he knows you.
Yeah. Wouldn't know him if I fell over him. Sorry.
And he has a question, actually.
I had to actually come to Europe so I could get up at a reasonable time to get on these calls.
To get on a call. It's too early for you? Lightweight?
Yeah.
It's like 3 a.m. in Vegas, right?
I know.
Well, come on. Why? I've been up, it's like, come on.
Yeah. I'm more of a late worker, but anyways.
Uh-huh.
Well, a long-time listener, first-time caller. I had a question for you on split squat, more specifically programming. So I will say with most of my patients, clients, I have avoided starting or using like either an early or negative shin angle going into a mid. So if an early representation to a mid on the front leg is what you would be thinking.
Yeah.
And the reason why would be because of like that javelin thrower we just had seen, I felt like a lot of people were end up just pushing forward through the pelvis. But I had one person recently who I did use that for success. I want to know.
When you say for success, define.
Like I was able to get some appreciable changes on the table, and like
what changes though? It's like that's what I need to know.
Internal. He had
just internal.
He was a narrow who had. I mean, it was likely orientation, but had significant amounts of ER, limited IR. Total arc was close to 100, I would say. And everything else was problematic anytime I was trying to do things that weren't in that range. I want to know what your thought process is when you would program that type of early to mid split squat for someone.
So you're talking about translating the tibia fully over the foot?
Or not even just all the way fully. Like I would start someone, not as poorly as I'm about to do it, but if you had someone starting from here, going to there.
Yeah.
Versus what I have seen some people do is like, when they come up and they do that sort of thing on the split squat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've been around a little bit.
It's like, when are you going from here to there on a split squat from a programming standpoint?
Okay, so if you think about the translation of the tibia,
yes,
it's like you have to have access to full middle propulsion, otherwise you can't translate the tibia in that direction, right?
You have to have access to middle propulsion, you said.
You have to. You have to.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the only way that you can translate a tibia forward over the foot under that circumstance without access to middle P is orientation,
Mhm.
which is what I don't want to do.
Sure.
And so if you got a whole bunch of IR back, but you drop off ER in the process, then you didn't access relative motions.
Mhm.
All you got was spine movement. That's just spine movement.
So then what are you doing to avoid the scenario where someone gets the negative shin angle, but pelvis is translating forward?
So you're talking about like a tibia that's behind the foot?
Correct. That would be the start I'm thinking of. Yes.
Well, in a split squat, that would be the standard operating procedure because you're in an ER representation. So it's early. So the tibia would be
Yes.
behind the foot. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm not understanding your question because that would be the typical representation for an early representation of propulsion. So
Well, there's that.
bending in that position?
I have seen people do that.
Well, of course they do because they don't have any internal rotation, and so they keep orienting the pelvis away from the lead foot. That's what that is.
Correct.
Yeah. And then they end up what? So what happens if you don't have access to middle propulsion? That means that you don't have the pelvis shape. You don't have internal rotation available to you. So if you're going to descend towards the ground, you'll have to do it in an ER representation.
Got it.
There's no other alternative, right? Unless you orient, which again, it's like you're going to see the orientation of the pelvis with a spinal compensatory strategy, or they're going to hold the ER representation, which is just turning the pelvis away from the lead foot as they descend, which is why you're going to see all the compensatory strategy on the rear leg under those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when you'll see like the knees look like they drift.
It's not the knee.
Not the knees.
See,
yeah.
It's not the knee. It's the pelvis just staying in an
Pelvis
ER orientation. There's no change. There's no shape change. That's all.
Got it.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was something where because what I've had a lot of people, and I think maybe I was just using the split squat to mitigate some of the axial orientation, but I would coach it with more of a hinged starting point to recapture some of the.
It's not a hinge, dude. It's not a hinge. Can't. If they don't have access to IR, you don't have the sacral orientation, you don't have the pelvis orientation, you don't have the muscle orientation. It's like what you're seeing is an orientation. The most overprescribed and misprescribed exercise on the planet may be a split squat.
I would agree with that.
Because somewhere along the line, somebody said that everybody should squat, everybody should hinge, everybody should lunge, and I don't know what the rest of them are. But not everybody, structurally, that's not possible. Because the spaces that you need to access to perform that activity are very specific. And if you don't have them, you can't do that exercise without a compensatory strategy. What has been identified as relative motions visually is not relative motion. But you can always tell by the outcomes. See, that's the thing. It's like if you pick up one or the other, if you pick up a bunch of ER, you pick up a bunch of IR, and you don't get relative motion at the same time. So that's what relative motion is the ability to internally and externally rotate segments against one another, right? But if you don't have that, you don't have relative motion.
Got it.
Cool.
Thanks, Dad.